Hey, life's too short to settle for less. Go for the
Big Podcast.
or don't go at all.
It's Build a Big Podcast, the marketing podcast for podcasters. I'm David Hooper. BigPodcast.com is the site, and the things that I do there are help you grow your podcast audience, get more people to your podcast, get them talking about it, get them sharing it, have a podcast that people care about, help you make more money with your podcast. If you're interested in those things, bigpodcast.com is where to go. If you go there right now, I've got some freebies that I can send you to help you do just the things that I talked about, grow your audience, make people care about your podcast. And I've also got a newsletter. It comes out every Friday. It is called Big Podcast Insider. You'll get that as well. This is the audio edition of that. Let's get to it. Why I lost a major podcast opportunity and how to make sure that it doesn't happen to you. This was a couple of years ago. Had a big podcast opportunity come across my desk. A friend of mine from NPR thought that I would be a great match for this project that was happening in Nashville, and he got me connected with the production company. I have been self-employed for over 20 years, so I wasn't looking for anything. In general, I do not like doing work for other people, but I saw the project, I saw who I'd be working with, I thought it would be a great opportunity. I agreed to meet with them. As it turned out, the friend of mine who introduced me to this opportunity, he was right. My personality, my knowledge, they were a perfect match for this. Also, the work that I've done in podcasting and broadcasting, it was exactly the same thing that these guys were looking for. I had literally done it hundreds of times before, but the job these guys wanted me for, it wasn't a hosting position. So I ran into a snag when one of the people that I had to go through, she thought that I was trying to get myself on the mic. She said, "We already have a host." This is the downside of being known as a radio host. It is also something that, for whatever reason, a lot of people in the podcasting and broadcasting space, especially outsiders, the people that are the business guys, the accountants, the money men, the marketers, for whatever reason, they think the highest level of work in this business is being on the mic. And this is where it gets tricky for someone like me. And I mention this because it could be tricky for someone like you. The work that we do on the mic, it goes out to a lot of people. The work that we do off the mic, production, editing, engineering, anything like that, a lot of people don't even know that we're involved in that work. So if you're doing work on the mic, you need to be aware of that a lot of people aren't going to be aware of your other skills. This is the truth for me, and it may be for you. I would rather be a producer than a host. The only reason that I do as much hosting as I do is because when the projects that I've worked on were created, I was the only one available who could do the host. I feel that I'm good on the mic, competent on the mic, sometimes great on the mic. If you're on the mic enough, you have your moments. But there's more to podcasting than just being on the mic. If you're like me and you find yourself hosting on most or even all of the projects that you work on, you might want to consider doing some non-hosting roles to help showcase your non-hosting abilities. And I want to be real clear about this. I'm not saying that you need to play small or do work that you don't want to do. If you want to be a host, be a host and be a host as much as you can. But if you're looking to branch out and do some off the mic stuff, if you're best known for the hosting that you do, sometimes you're not going to be respected for the non-hosting that you do. It's almost like an actor. You often hear this, "Well, I'm an actor, but I really want to produce." Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. But if you're looking for a producer in film or television, are you going to hire the actor who really wants to produce? Or are you going to hire the producer who specializes in production? If this is you, you want to be known as a producer, here's a great opportunity for you. You can knock it out literally in 24 hours. It's KCRW's Radio Race. It is happening in about a week. This will help you add something great to your professional reel in just 24 hours. Here's what they say. Whether you're a pro or a newbie, there's a place for you at KCRW's 24-hour radio race. This is very much like a 24-hour film project or a 24-hour music album. If you don't know it, I'm in Nashville, and this is something that happens all the time here. They'll get musicians together, a production team together, engineers together. They will literally record an album in 24 hours, write it, everything. Is it great? I don't know. Some cool stuff happens because of it. It's definitely a way for you to bond with people, and it's definitely a way for you to get really clear about making decisions. You've probably seen the 24-hour film festivals, the same thing, but people will do a short film. This is how it works for the 24-hour radio race. Here's the task. You're going to make a nonfiction radio story. It is 4 minutes or less. Saturday, November 13th, this is at 1 p.m. Eastern. You were given the theme to base your audio piece on. You don't know this ahead of time. You spend the next 24 hours either by yourself or with a team, brainstorming, interviewing, recording, producing, and editing the piece. Whatever you need to do to make that finished piece that's 4 minutes or less. Sunday, the next day, 24 hours later, November 14th, before 1 p.m. Eastern. So you've got to do this 24 hours or less. You submit the finished piece. It's a cool thing. It's going to let you add to your reel very quickly. You'll be in and out within 24 hours. It's an opportunity for you to connect with other people who are doing this same type of work. Maybe you're thinking, hey, I'd like to work with that guy. You don't know if you really work well with him or not. Well, this is an opportunity to find out. I've got this linked, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. If you decide to do it, I want you to let me know. I'm going to be following some of the people who do this, and I will be showcasing them here on this podcast. So let me know, reach out to me, bigpodcast.com. And again, the link's at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Minus is the anti-Twitter that grants you 100 posts for life. I love this idea. Minus is a new social media company, network, app, whatever you want to call it. I think it's a great opportunity to practice those decision-making skills that are going to come in handy for something like the 24-hour radio race. When we make a podcast, we've got to make a lot of decisions. Should we leave this in? Should we take it out? Should we edit this? Should we EQ this? You know the decisions that we have to make. Should we ask this question? Should we follow up on this question? Should we interview this guest? Should we release this episode? It used to be that the decisions that we made were permanent. When you made a decision, that was it. And I'm thinking back when I started, we're recording on magnetic tape. If I took a blade to that tape, I'm cutting it. Now, I could tape it back together, right? But more or less, it's not like Control Z, where I make a decision, make an edit, say, I don't really like that. Control Z it. Or if you're using a non-destructive editor, you can go back in and change something back later. Speaking of destructive and non-destructive editors, that's actually one of the reasons that I really love Audacity. People say, oh, it's a destructive editor. You can't go back. It's like, yeah, learn how to make a decision, man. We used to do this all the time with creative work, news, personal communication. You had a limited amount of tape. You had a limited amount of paper, a limited amount of pages in the magazine. You might have heard that saying, all the news that's fit to print. That's why. They only had a limited amount of paper. We don't have that anymore. Now, anytime somebody has a passing thought, it gets posted online, it gets texted, or whatever way that we're communicating with other people. Because of this, we're not as good as making these decisions. We try things, go back to it. Well, I'm not sure which one is best. And you go back and forth, back and forth. Used to be you would make a decision and go on. Was it the perfect decision? I don't know. But you could move forward and you could be a whole lot more productive because of it. It wasn't perfect. But you know what they say about perfect? Perfect is the enemy of good. Minus is like Twitter, but you have 100 posts that you can make. How will you choose to make those posts? Check it out. It is linked, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. I have a link to my first post if you want to see what I decided to do with it, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This next thing, this is going to help you if you're doing the KCRW radio race, or if you're doing any kind of documentary podcast, or even if you're doing an interview podcast. This is about wrangling stories, getting a grip on that story, having the beginning, middle, and end so something makes sense. And you do that with a focused sentence. This is huge. Once you get this concept, and it's very simple. In fact, it's so simple, so obvious, you won't believe that you haven't been doing it already, unless you are doing it already. Sometimes it's so obvious people are doing it already, but I think reading this article, reading this thing about the focused sentence, I think it's going to make sure that you do it every single episode. It will change your production. It will change your episodes. I've got more information linked, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. If you need new episode ideas, I can help you with that, especially if you're doing something like the NaPodPoMo. That's happening this month, National Podcast Post Month. Every day for a month, people are putting out a new episode. Maybe you've already got a daily episode. Maybe weekly is too often for you to think of great episodes. I don't know, but if you need new episode ideas, if you're doing a lot of podcast episodes, if you just need new ideas, this is going to help you. There's some podcasts you'll hear from time to time. The host will get on there. Oh, what should I talk about today? They haven't planned it out. Hit record way too soon. Haven't thought at all what they should talk about. Don't have anything outlined. The flip side of that is people who interview folks and they've got what they think is a deadline where the new episode needs to get out. Oh man, I got to release an episode tomorrow. And then on these forums, who can I interview today? Yeah, that's never a good way to do it. It's not going to be good. Nobody that you want to interview is available right now. The people you want to interview, they schedule things. They're out working. They have lives. They're not sitting around reading forums thinking, yeah, maybe I'll catch a last minute podcast interview tonight. No. I mean, you might get lucky every once in a while. I've never seen it work though. Never seen it work. You got to plan ahead for these things. I've got an interview that I'm doing this week. I've been trying to get this lady for a couple months. I'm too busy. Can't do it. Reschedule. It's tough to get people that are busy that have good stories. It's always the people who aren't busy, the people who are desperate for anything. They're the ones who are willing to do something last minute like that. Guests have to prepare too, just like you should be preparing as a host. Anyway, I've got this article. It's about how to find new topic ideas, not just for your next episode, but for your podcast in general. It will help you if you need episode ideas. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. That's where to find it. This week, this is something that never happens. The Shure SM7B broadcast microphone. It is on sale. This is one of two microphones that you will see when you walk into a radio studio. You'll see the Shure SM7B, or you will see the Electro Voice RE20. There are only two microphones in professional broadcast radio. Why is that? Because they are great microphones. The Shure almost never comes on sale. It is on sale now. I've got the link at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. It's a great vocal mic. Thriller by Michael Jackson. He did the vocals on the Shure SM7B. It is a wonderful microphone. So check it out, newsletter.bigpodcast.com if you want to catch a deal on it. By the way, if you're curious about the mic that I'm using, it is not the Shure SM7B. It is the Audio-Technica BP40. It's a great mic. It's their version of the Shure SM7B. Everybody's got their version of a broadcast microphone. And I've been using Audio-Technica for 30 years. When I'm on the radio, I use that other mic that I mentioned, the RE20 by Electro Voice. Both of them solid mics. This one that I'm using now, it's an outlier. Not a lot of people use it. It's only been on the market for about 3 years. Those others, they've been on the market for about 50 years. That's one of the reasons why so many people use them. On my radio show, I use the RE20. Shure SM7B, I'd have no issues with it. It just so happens that I was loyal to this brand. BP40 Audio-Technica is what I'm using now. That's all linked in the newsletter as well. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Hey, I appreciate you listening to this audio edition of the Big Podcast Insider. Every week, the print version goes out via email, and you can subscribe at that same URL, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Every Friday morning, you will get this in your box. I make it easy. Find 4 or 5 things that I think you should know about, put a little bit of commentary on them. Might take you 3 minutes to read, if that. So if you want to keep on top of podcast marketing, being a better host, making better episodes, this is the newsletter for you. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. And of course, you can find me all the other times at bigpodcast.com. I've got some episode templates there. I've got some ways for you to grow your podcast. Either way, go to one of those two sites. I'll get you set up on growing your podcast, making better episodes, building an audience, and helping people with your message. Thanks for listening to Build a Big Podcast. I'll see you on the next episode.